I didn't find out my wife was cheating in some dramatic, obvious way. No late nights, no perfume that wasn't hers, no gut feeling I couldn't point to, just a notification. So last week, my wife was in the shower, her phone lit up beside me, and without thinking I picked it up. I assumed it was one of her daughters, Maddie or Alice, confirming what time their girls' dinner was. Instead, I saw a message from an unsaved number. "I can't wait to see you. Kiss emoji." I froze. For a second I just stared at it, like maybe I read it wrong. Like maybe there was some explanation that would magically appear if I waited long enough. It didn't. I opened the message. There wasn't much, just a short thread. Dinner plans for that evening. Talking about how much they missed each other, how once a week wasn't enough. Once a week? 29 years of marriage, and that's what it came down to. I needed to be sure. I needed to catch her in something concrete before she left the house. So I texted both my daughters. "Hey, what time's girls' dinner tonight?" What happened next broke something in me. They both replied, confirmed it, said they were excited. They knew. I wish I could say I handled things with dignity after that, but I didn't. While she was still in the shower, I turned on location sharing on her phone. Then I let her leave like nothing was wrong, and I followed her. She drove to a restaurant across town. I sat in my car watching the entrance, still hoping somehow that I'd see my daughters walk in, that this was all some insane misunderstanding. They never showed up, but he did, her boss. I watched as they greeted each other like they'd done 100 times before, smiling, comfortable, close. Then they held hands, and then they kissed. That was it. Any part of me that still hoped I was wrong died right there in that parking lot. I took pictures. I don't even remember deciding to do it, I just did. And then sitting in my car, shaking, I opened our family group chat. I sent all the photos, and I wrote one line. "Glad you're enjoying girls' dinner together." Then I turned off my phone. I drove straight to my brother's house and asked if I could stay the night. I don't remember much of that evening. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. Over 40 texts, 20 voicemails. My wife followed the script. Excuses, justifications, damage control. I didn't listen to a single voicemail. I was ready to send one message. "I'm filing for divorce, get a lawyer," but my brother stopped me. He told me to think smarter, to meet with the best lawyers first, make sure she couldn't use them. So that's what I did. But before anything else, I sent one message to the group chat. "I'm physically fine, but I need time. I'll come home when I'm ready." Then I muted everything. I spent the entire day meeting lawyers, one after another, and when I finally choose one, I picked the one who looked ready to burn everything down if it came to that. That night I checked my messages. Maddie, my youngest, has sent nearly 50 texts, apologising, spiralling, saying she hated herself for lying to me. Her boyfriend even reached out saying she was on the verge of a panic attack. That one hurt. So I replied, "Maddie, I love you, but what you did hurt me deeply. I need space." She responded almost instantly, apologising again, saying she'd never forgive herself. I didn't reply. Then there was Alice, always closer to her mum, always the mediator. She apologised, but then said I shouldn't throw away a good marriage over one mistake. That's when the anger came back. I told her, "This isn't a mistake, this is betrayal. From all of you. Don't contact me again until I reach out." She didn't respond. But I know she showed her mother because shortly after, my wife messaging me telling me not to take it out on Alice. I ignored it. As far as I'm concerned, I'm done speaking to her unless it's through lawyers. This all happened 5 days ago, and I'm still at my brother's house. Every morning I wake up and it hits me all over again. Some moments I can't stop crying. Others I'm so angry I don't recognise myself. Losing my wife, that's one thing, but my daughters. They looked me in the eye and lied, covered for her, helped her. How do I even look at them the same way again? How do I forgive that? Alice's wedding is in the fall. I've been paying for most of it. Right now, I don't even know if I'll go. I don't know what moving forward looks like anymore. All I know is everything I thought I had, my marriage, my family, my life, it's gone. And I don't know how to rebuild from that. When betrayal comes for your entire family, is there even anything left to save?
It all started when I was 10, and by the time I was 13, I knew something no kid ever should. My father has multiple sclerosis, and he's lived with it for the last 26 years. He was also a corrections officer who worked for the graveyard shift. At the time, he was the vice president of the Disabled Drummers Association. He'd been tasked with completing a new website. To this day, my father needs help doing most things on a computer. My mum had the idea of asking one of the guys at the local computer store, where we bought a desktop, for books on building websites because she was trying to do it herself. That's when a young man around the age that I am now, 28, offered to help my parents build the website. My mum was about 36 at the time and my father was 42. Chris, the young man, started coming over around 5 or 6 p.m. while both my parents were home and they would work on the website. This website should have only taken a week or two tops. It was supposed to be something simple and informative. But weeks turned into months, and Chris started coming over later and later as time went on. I started getting a weird feeling about everything. I had a much different perspective because the computer was on the bottom floor of our house, and I was the only one who lived downstairs. The computer was in our family room, a mere 30 feet from my bedroom door. I became 100% certain something was going on about 7 months into this charade when I heard them upstairs watching Saving Private Ryan. I could hear them making out, and I remember it sounding like a sloppy mess. I also heard them rounding second and then third base. Needless to say, I still have not watched that movie. I heard their conversations slowly progress as the nights got later and later. To the rest of my family, he had apparently become a family friend, even coming to my elementary school graduation when I was 12. Yes, this affair had been going on for years. Whether my father was oblivious or chose to believe nothing was happening. She had cheated once before too, with a guy named Bob when I was 6, which I also knew about, but that story is for another time, I suppose. So, 2 years later, 3 years later, the damn site still wasn't done. And he was still coming over, now waiting until my father left for work at 9 p.m. One day in 7th grade, when I was 13, about a month before Thanksgiving, I finally decided to mention something to someone. I decided to tell my sister what I knew. She was 11 at the time. She didn't understand and just kept saying, "Mommy loves Daddy." Oddly enough, later that night, my father opened the cell phone bill, which he never did. My mum usually managed the finances. He saw a bunch of calls to one number while everyone was home. My mum had been having undiagnosed bladder issues and she'd been going to the bathroom constantly. He put 2 and 2 together and it finally clicked in his head. He lost his cool that night. He found out 2 hours before leaving for his 9 p.m. shift. He had his uniform on and everything. He left at his normal time of 8 p.m. because he worked about half an hour away and always liked to be early. 9 p.m. rolls around and I'm still sitting next to my sister, who seems confused. My mother sat us down on the couch upstairs and told us to pack. I told her I didn't want to leave, but she got angry and started crying, trying to guilt me into following her orders. Chris showed up, and he and my mother basically kidnapped my sister and me. We drove to Chris's little apartment in town. It was the middle of the night, so I couldn't see any street signs. It was a weekend, so I didn't have school for a few days, and we were forced to stay inside. I still remember the musky smell of his dark upstairs apartment. He had dating books all over his bookshelf as well. Sunday rolled around, and my mum decided to take us to see the first Pokemon movie. I was a huge Pokemon nerd, and it had come out earlier that week. Bad idea, because I learnt where we were after seeing the local ice rink, Kennedy Ice Arena. I asked to call my dad because I missed him, and the first thing I did was tell him where I was. At that point, my mum offered to take my sister and me home because she didn't want my father knowing the exact location where she planned to keep staying. The next week, my mum rented her own house in town. I keep saying in town because I lived outside of the city and you had to drive into town to get to anything. Anyway, she rented her house and came to get all of her stuff within a week. My sister decided to go with my mum, as she was using a buy your love tactic and I wasn't falling for it. Thanksgiving rolled around a couple of weeks later, and my father and I made chicken breast with stuffing and mashed potatoes in our empty house. By then, it was more populated by our pets, 3 cats and a dog, than it was by humans. Christmas time came around, and for the last month, it had been a string of broken promises from my mum. She said she would make time for me and promised she was done with Chris. I finally agreed to spend the night in the spare room at my mother's place, as she promised me Chris wouldn't show up. I agreed to go on a night my father didn't work, just in case. Around 11 p.m, Chris came. Perfect. There was a phone next to my bed, so I called my dad and asked him to come get me. I weren't wearing shoes, no socks, just shorts and a t-shirt. I walked past Chris and my mother on my way out and waited for my dad. It was quite mild for mid-December, so the blizzard was more slush than snow. I stood at the end of the driveway for 45 minutes while Chris and my mother stood bundled up in the garage, yelling at me to come inside, never once making an attempt to brave the weather and force me back in. My father finally showed up, and luckily he had some blankets in the Astrovan. I wrapped myself in them, and on the way home I began spewing out the most hateful and cuss-filled rant I have never topped to this day. My parents eventually worked things out, which I believe happened because my dad bit the bullet due to the disability MS would eventually bring. He's currently in hospital from a broken hip and new lesions on his spinal cord. In the end, it was probably best for him, as my mum does take good care of him. I've moved on from the situation and put myself into therapy a few years ago to learn how to better control my emotions over it. We have a good relationship now. I've still got strong suspicions that my mum cheats on my father to this day, as I've found somewhat circumstantial evidence, but I don't dig too deep anymore. As long as she continues to help take care of my best friend and my hero, I can deal with whatever she chooses to do. If anyone decides to read that whole thing, kudos. If anyone would ever like to talk or ask about the situation because they're going through something similar, I'm here to help. No one should go through that alone. Throughout the whole ordeal, I was an emotional disaster. I was a short, fat, nerdy kid that nobody liked. All I had was my father, Our bond to this day is still unshakable. I'm off to the hospital to see him now. When loyalty and love collide with betrayal, how do you decide which one to hold on to?
If this story pulled you in, don't look away just yet. Support the channel by subscribing, liking and sharing, but only if you're ready to see more of what hides in the shadows. We release new stories twice a week, Sundays and Thursdays, between 6 and 8 PM BST. That's when the silent gets a little heavier. And if you can't wait that long, there's something new every day. Shorts, quick glimpses into the darker side, all except Saturdays. Got a story of your own? Something you can't quite explain? Or something you've never told anyone? Send it to hiddennarrativestories@gmail.com. Your story might be the next one we uncover. Thank you for watching, and remember, not everything strange is just coincidence. Stay aware, stay watching.